Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Georgia Street Fighter Scene Community Podcast Group Discussion. I'll be your moderator for this event this evening. My name is ShadowAce, and I want to first thank SirRetro for agreeing to host this discussion. The reason I've assembled our guest speakers here today for this evening is to get your views and opinion on the Street Fighter V Georgia scene and Street Fighter V in general. The game has been out for about 6 years by now, and
Yeah,
that's quite a long time before the next installment drops for Street Fighter Six. So each of you, you guys may have different hold different views and opinions towards the game, the community in general. And this is an opportunity to express yourself in a constructive manner here. But let's start off first by introducing our panel for this evening. I'll go first. This is Shadow Ace here. I am a ed player here for Street Fighter Five. I also play some Fault 2 as well. Some Rashid. I played Rashid back in season 1 here, and I'm also a commentator as well, who commentates several online events. Now that we're in the COVID pandemic scenario, I'm starting to do commentate for different online events as well. And joining me also on this panel, we have Sir Retro. Sir Retro, talk to the good people. Introduce yourself.
yeah. How's it going, everyone? For those who don't know and those who are familiar, once again, I am Sir Retro. More to, I'll say, more recent tournament organizers in the Georgia area. I played Street Fighter Five actually from the get go. Been playing Street Fighter as for the legacy since I was a toddler. But as for the current Street Fighter Five, those who mostly see me in tournaments, I play with G. Played Alex in the first few up to the first 3 seasons, then switched to G, and of course, a lot of people see me in G as like the persona kind of fit in some way. So I do take that, and also I think they take me as the mayor of Macon in the sense too. So I get a lot little accolades and little reference in that sense. But of course, mainly for Street Fighter Five in my scene, I at least train players in our areas, at least at the beginning fundamentals of Street Fighter Five, and that's pretty much my biggest and my best game that I focus on, and as well as train and play and compete in and stuff like that.
Okay. And also joining me on this for this evening's panel, we have FGC Jesus. FGC Jesus, how are you today, sir?
Hello, I'm doing fine. As he said, I am FGC Jesus, commentator, content creator, and all around great player. I'm more of a man about town round nowadays. I sort of flit between esports to esports scene, just trying to stoke a fire under this city and trying to get something to happen.
Bro, wow, that sounds very mysterious and interesting at the same time. You also, well known Fong player too.
Oh yeah,
One
in the
of
halcyon days.
Georgia's best commentators, Mr. Commentator of the Year himself, Dogysamich. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing okay. Commentator of the year, that was like 3 years ago, back when we can actually get around to meet people.
Look,
Um,
that I'm sorry. Go ahead.
in terms of Street Fighter Five, I'm literally just a commentator. Like I've dabbled in playing a little bit, but not enough to be anything of note. But pretty much just an on-call commentator. That's my calling.
The on-call commentator, yo. If you need a tournament commentated, that's one of the guys you would go to in Georgia for sure. Each of us have been in the scene for quite some years, in dealing with this, pandemic situation, and things have changed, man. I think the mentality has kind of shifted, um, as far as the scene goes here, and I just wanted to get you guys, get you guys some opinions and some feedback on what's happening and what the future could be potentially looking like.
Of course.
First off, I want to thank you all for joining me. This was supposed to have happened like maybe a month ago, but I figured with the holidays and people traveling, people's schedules would be different. So I wanted to wait until things calmed down just a little bit as far as that goes. And, speaking of traveling, I mean, I haven't seen you guys in over a year, probably even longer since the pandemic began. I remember
Yeah, it
just
certainly feels
before,
like a little
yeah.
bit longer than a year at this point.
It's been
Oh
like
my
2.
God, yeah, two, at least two, right?
Mm.
At least two.
Hmm.
I just remember just before my company started, to work from home, I used to travel to 404 since it was about like 10 to 15 minutes from my job back then.
Yeah.
And I haven't really been back outside of that maybe three times since then. And when I went, like there were small brackets. Like when I went, there was like maybe three or four entrants at a time, like a
Hmm.
round robin scenario for each time I went. And I was thinking to myself, man, like, yo, where is everybody? Like, I drove like an hour and change in traffic, just to get through this. Even though it's 20 minutes away with Georgia traffic, that's like a good. Uh,
Well, maybe as
but
the discussion goes on, I'll have a little something to say about that.
okay, all right, no worries. You're more than welcome to. And then, but I just wanted to get some sets in, man. But the atmosphere was, it just kind of felt different. Like I just felt that it just wasn't the same anymore. The competition spirit just wasn't there, and that's what I knew. Like the scene for me, like I felt that it was kind of like slowing down. Um, Nothing against 404. I appreciate the effort they made in trying to run it, but I could tell. I felt like it was like, oh man, I think this might be over, man. And I felt like people would only show up if certain people went, and I could understand and not understand at the same time because they want competition. Um, but at the same time, it's like disheartening for people who are, is trying to get into the game, or just wanted to asking questions like where are the tournaments at and stuff like that. So it's kind of disheartening for them now that they don't have an avenue to compete outside of just playing casuals all the time. The tournament life is definitely different. So yeah, let's get started here as far as the questions here. I got a good question from each one of you guys. Here you're allowed to as much time as you want to answer the questions and express yourself. And I'll start off with you, FGCJesus. Another reason why I wanted to have this discussion is because I remember reading in the FGC Fight Club Discord. Shout out to Doja, Crystal, and Criminal, and the rest of the Discord group. When you guys went from offline to online, someone in that Discord group was asking about when is the next tournament, and you answered that the group had kind of like disbanded.
Yes.
Yeah, those
FGC
guys
Fight Club
were.
is a defunct project now.
Oh, yo, that's
Mm.
that's heartbreaking. But I know. Remember those guys used to work so hard, to try to get people to enter with like the promo graphics, the special videos, and they tried to push as much as possible, but the numbers
Oh yeah.
just were not there as one
It's
would
not
hope.
even just the numbers, my friend. There was a
It's not even
wide number of things that
agreed.
went wrong and that basically crushed our spirits to the point where we just decided to leave the project alone. The amount of money invested in FGC Fight Club, time and effort, all with no one getting paid because it was never profitable, it ended up not being worth it. You see, when we started FGC Fight Club, we intended to create an esports platform wherein we could create online leagues that would eventually bleed into an in-person event series. We had a physical location, we had a studio, we had all the equipment we needed to stream both in studio and remotely. We even had patented tech that we made ourselves in order to do such a thing much more easily than any of our competition. However, when we shifted our gears away from the physical location at 404 and also at Versus Esports, there was a little bit of bad blood between most of the FGC and FGC Fight Club, which dug into our numbers. And not only did it dig into our numbers, it was digging into our events itself. Like people don't understand, man.
Mm.
We were being scrappy. We were doing everything we could to throw good events for people for free.
Hmm.
I was driving an hour and 45 minutes every week to get to that studio to commentate on a tournament. Well, not even just one tournament. Maybe sometimes like 3, 4 in a row just to get some sort of entertainment value. We were creating clips. We created an entire infrastructure to show to like TV stations and stuff like that. And the response was just so lackluster that we realized that we were fighting over the same 40 to 50 people online as all of our quote unquote competitors. Competitors basically just being the 404 people and the Tekken House people. And so, one day I go to Dosa and I'm just like, dude, I love doing this, but it's actually weighing on me very heavily right now. And a lot of the way that the FGC is acting right now in the middle of the pandemic is just sort of like, I can't keep abreast of everything anymore like I used to. So I need to dip out and take some time off. And once I left, Dosa sort of gave it a month, packed up, and moved on to different things. I actually just met up with him the other day and talked about it. And he got done dirty by the FGC. He is not planning on returning to that arena anytime soon. Crystal and Griminal and everybody who worked with us, they're no longer with the studio. As far as I understand, I was never an official employee. I was volunteering out of the kindness of my heart and for like the love of the community. And so now Dosa and I are working on different projects after having after having met him. But it's sort of, there's been some things in the fighting game community that have really turned me off from the competitive sphere. And it's not only that, but I have other things to talk about as far as the Atlanta community is concerned when it comes to not only Street Fighter, but other games too.
Okay. Okay. And we'll definitely give you the floor to express yourself to the full extent on that. We'll definitely come back and touch base on that question here. And for Mr. Dogysamich, the commentator of the year himself for Grenette Brawl.
You're not gonna let that go, are you?
I'm not letting that go because you were the last one who got that award. You were the last one who got that award, so I have to give that to you. The voice of the voiceless, the man behind the mic motion, okay, etc. How are you today, sir?
Still doing pretty good. Still doing pretty good.
Okay. Okay. All right. Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. Still in good spirits here. My question is for someone who has commentated numerous events over the years and worked with different companies within Georgia. You get to see firsthand on how scenes operate behind the scenes too, as well. Like I'm thinking, I'm trying to go back all the way back to like the Street Fighter 4 era. I'm talking Impact Clash back at the Georgia World Congress Center when there was like what 30, 50 interests just for Street Fighter 4 back in the heyday, the younger days before everybody got old. And when Street Fighter 5 came out, we had a good number 2 at Grenette Brawl for it. But let me ask you, what do you think happened to those numbers? Like life, interests, COVID. What are your thoughts on that?
For Street Fighter specifically?
Street Fighter specifically, and if you'd like, you can express other if you'd like.
Well, really, with Street Fighter, from what I saw, it's like you had the group of people who were around at the end of Street Fighter 4, which was like the Atlanta people at the time, Joel, Shin Phoenix, Poke Chop, Dap Vip, I can go on and on, which were around the tournaments that were happening. So it was pretty easy to get there. You had people who were coming into the scene, like FGCJesus, like Alex and Takanoko, I want to say. He plays Seth now. moved over to Japan, or he's
Yeah. Takanoko lives in Japan now.
Takanoko, the up and comers who came up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You have all these people who are in Atlanta, right? Maybe not the same number as back in the day, but back in the day, we had people coming from all across the state and out of the state, right? I didn't mention the Augusta scene. Drew, Kyobi.
There was Drew. There was Kyobi and Marcus and Darian.
Couscous. How can I forget Couscous? Going to Stun City. You also had the Savannah scene, the Green Brothers, Rashid before he moved over to Atlanta. Like, there are more pools of people to pull from. Nobody ever mentions Columbus anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Korean Panda,
P2W. The P2W crew.
Oh, I mean, well, I actually don't even know this for a fact, but in large, wasn't P2W and GGC mostly around Atlanta?
I thought P2W was like based in Columbus, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that's CR2.
Or is it?
CR2,
that's
round two.
CR2. Okay, CR2 right in. Okay, I remember him. Okay.
So the point I'm making is there were people who were interested in Street Fighter V in the beginning. They were playing it, but because of the time, which a lot of the people who were around in 4 were getting older. They were getting married. They were getting tied down to families, jobs, this, that, or the other. You didn't have as many people who were able to come in like back in the day, right? So that's why there wasn't like a huge surgence of new people from everywhere, from all the other cities and everything. Why did it die down over time? Well, the people who liked the game, who wanted to stick with the game, stuck through it, really I don't want to say to the bitter end because it's not the end yet, but they stuck to it until time's hit, which is why this podcast is a thing, right? Which is why you are pulling people who are affiliated with Street Fighter, and I mean, just the two of us doesn't represent the community as a whole.
Right.
But how many people were actually coming in after the game came out? There were not too many because the game didn't have a great start.
No.
No matter how you slice it, whether you like it now, whether you were one of the people who were crazy and cool with it in the beginning, which there were some people that were okay with it, it was hard to get people in the beginning. And by the time the game settled down, whether you pick like season 4, season 5, wherever it is now, right? It's hard to get somebody to get into the game now. So at what point in time, if the game didn't have a good launch, which it didn't, at what point in time are you going to get the people in? Like, you will get fortunate and you will tap into a new community, which is why like Macon has come up, for example, and come to find out there's like a good 8 or 10 people ready to play Street Fighter. But unless you're just finding these pockets of people who really were uninformed about it, how can you really get somebody who wasn't interested in the first place to now look at the game? And that's one of the problems that really plagued the community throughout Street Fighter V, from my perspective.
Yeah, I think around the end of season 1, the people who just weren't willing to put up with the jankiness of early Street Fighter V sort of just died off and went on to different things. I know that was certainly the case with the Augusta crew, as they were a big Street Fighter 4 community. And season 1 was around the point where I was still living in Augusta, and we had a very, very strong community then. But I remember Heavyweight, one of the pillars of our community who used to host all of our locals.
Thank you. I couldn't remember his name.
He got married.
I remember his name?
Jacob.
Yeah.
Jacob Heavyweight. He got married, right? He got married. He had kids. We couldn't use his house anymore, and nobody else was really willing to host. And so it sort of ended up being that everyone lost interest and sort of moved on to different games, and the sense of community died. The unfortunate fact of the matter is that since people weren't coming to Atlanta to mingle with every other scene, the community didn't get much stronger, because a fighting game community thrives on the strength of its individual members and their ability to attract new players to get better. And there was like a small revival when Adam started winning around season 2 and 3, Neon Verte for those who don't know. But I mean, after that, it was like there was the debacle with the physical location where we were supposed to go to between Versus 404 and Access Replay, and nobody knew where they were supposed to go or what they were supposed to do. And things just started to fall apart because
slowly over
no
time.
casuals were being held anymore, really.
Outside of just house sessions and maybe like going to a venue here and there. Starting now, like as of now, the only open venue here would be 404 Esports. That would be at least in Atlanta. At least in Atlanta, from what I know. Outside of just house sessions outside of Atlanta, that's kind of like the only place you could probably go at this time to try to get games in or Street Fighter 5. Is
I know
that
that
a fair?
Augusta
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I know Augusta is trying to revive their fighting game scene right now with Koos and several other members of the Augusta scene are holding their what is it called?
That's a guard break.
Yeah, guard break, which is a very, very good event, and they've managed to find an excellent venue and also really good prize pools, 250 to 300 per game, which is astonishing in my eyes. But they're trying to revive their FGC. But from what I'm understanding, the numbers are also not super high right now.
Mm-hmm. Now let me ask: who was spearheading? Like what is the team for Augusta guard break at this moment? Is it Kyoki and Drusev?
By team, do you mean the people running the event or just who's playing?
The people who's running the event.
The people who I can't remember what his name is. It's a new guy who's running the event. He's actually a DJ and event organizer. It's actually him and Kyoki are the organizers, and Drusev and Koos and Heavyweight have almost nothing to do with it other than they show up.
Heavyweight did a little bit for the third one. I went to the third one, the one before before all this started. And I mean, he wasn't like a front runner per se with everything, but he was helping run brackets at least. Like he was a presence in the staff. Again, he wasn't the main guy. I can't think of his name as well. Really nice guy. Went out of his way to greet everybody who took the time to go out there. But
that's what's needed.
Yeah.
That's what's needed. But yeah, I mean that's kind of like the first step to rebuilding the community in the Augusta guard break. Is that sounds like a good step, a good path that they're taking to get people to go out there. The problem, I guess, one of the problems will be people actually traveling all the way out there to go there. I know for some people it's like what a 2 to 4 hour drive, depending on your location. So people are like, well, why should I travel all the way out there just to compete in this 6-man, 8-man bracket or whatever when I could just be at home from the comfort of my home? Travel is also one of another issue that kind of like I felt like plagued the community a bit. Like just people actually going to the event and talking about going to it, but just don't, or just I don't know what happens. They just don't show up. But yeah, I'll touch back on that. I'll touch bases on that. SirRetro, good sir, the man who is streaming this current podcast discussion. Quick question for you. As the mayor of Macon himself, the host of the stream. Thank you again for hosting this. You're currently running the Reboot Macon series, which is kind of the location is kind of a good drive. As I said, it was talking about travel. Which depending on which area of Atlanta you live in, or which area of Georgia you're in. But for me, it's about like a 2-hour and change drive to and from. So it feels like I'm driving to South Carolina. How have you been able to maintain and keep the scene alive and thriving down there with like multiple games, including Street Fighter Five. I think you did mention that a bit earlier, but I just wanted to touch base on that.
Yeah. Ultimately, I would say,
Is it retro?
yeah. Can you hear me?
Did we?
Yeah.
Still in the chat.
Yeah. Wait, am I muted?
He's in the chat.
I'm muted. Wait.
Yeah.
Sounds like he's having audio issues.
Oh, wait.
Oh, he's having audio issues, so we'll probably dive back to that question then. Soon, but yeah, each of us, we've been in this scene for quite some time here. Originally, I had asked I was going to try to get other people to get into on this, but I didn't want it to be too crowded, so that way everybody has a chance to express themselves freely without too much interruption. So I think this is a good amount. Dap Vip, one of the TO and founders of Gwinnett Brawl, they were going to join us on the conversation. And we might, I do want to do another one for sure with different people to just try to get some, the feedback and how they feel to express themselves. But throughout Georgia, I mean, there's just been a lot of venues and a lot of history in here as far as like FGC action. Um, Outside of just Street Fighter, Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 5. I mean, we've had we're the home of Final Round, right? We're the home of Final Round. So this is that's kind of like that's like our Evo. If you're not able to travel, it was considered our Evo for somebody new coming into the scene because that whole entire atmosphere when it was ran, it was like you had hundreds, 100 people per tournament, 100 plus people per tournament and stuff. It was a really good feeling. It was a good feeling. Like the community was alive. You had house sessions, you had sessions in the hotels the night before that major was ran, and it was an amazing feeling. But that was back in those days. Of course, times change, things happen, and eventually it can't last forever. So what we have to do, like what are we do? What are we going to do, like as far as like a state, as a state itself, as a whole? You FGC Jesus mentioned the Augusta guard break, like there's just a lot of different venues that we had over the years. Final round, Gwinnett Brawl, Impact Clash, Tencent Post, Data FGC. There was the ATL Benjamin series, Battle and Brew, 4 Esports, FGC Fight Club, Momocon, DreamHack, Augusta Card Break, Gamers Experience, Tipped Off, Wawa Games, Reboot, Yomi, college campuses, Georgia Tech, Access Replay. There was a lot of different spots, man. A lot of different spots over the years to go out and just get some sets in, man. But it was a lot, it's a rich history. But the fact that I feel that we just don't have a stable community now is kind of like raising the eyebrow question, like, well, damn, what's the next step? Like, what happens? What happens from here? Um, so
I'm back, y'all.
I'll go ahead. Okay, okay, all right. Welcome back, sir. But yeah, I had a question for you. I'm not sure if you were able to hear it.
Mm.
But I can exit to you again if you'd like.
Was it about how they'll keep the scene going in the area?
Right, right.
Yeah. Um, but like I said, I think also too it should shade for how the scene has been in general. I say the factors for me that kept it going is one. Well, number one, I would say is having people like local business outside of the community who understand the interests in the game in the community, and pretty much like the start with Reboot and how we are now with 5 years been running the event for a while. Um, is the fact that you have the owner of the arcade, the people around the area. When we start running tournaments and stuff, people took notice of something's going on, and you can tell that that type of event, that type of scenario, was something kind of not seen a lot in the area. At I'm not sure, like for a larger crowd, like outside, like general crowd. So there people were like, no, will ask about, hey, well, would you like to try to do tournaments about this and this and this? And when we first did our first tournament for Tekken 7, for example, we had people just came out of nowhere, just interested in playing the game. It's new, it's out, everything. And to as far as the maintenance, of it wasn't. The fact is that the owner, saw that and was like, hey, here, here's this place. Here's our lawn you can use. We saw like at least like it could be 14 people interested. That's enough number for that person, for the owner to say, hey, well, we can keep events going for y'all. We can see if y'all guys can need something. And the thing is, we just need space. But to keep it going, the owner was like, well, I can see if I could offer additional prizes or offer just things and that if people would be interested in coming to the event, just to compete for gift cards or whatever else in addition to money. And it just like him, he just really was like seeing the interest. He didn't care about the games that much. He didn't really wasn't much interested, but he saw a small amount of us in there. But to keep it going, he would talk to people in his arcade panels and forums about our tournament scene, and would ask and say, hey, well, we got tournament stuff going on in our place, and other arcade owners and people like, hey, yeah, well, we're in Florida, we're in this area, we'll let y'all people know. And so that's pretty much was one of the big factors, is having someone who don't really care about fighting games like that to care about us who care about fighting games. And then from there on, I think what really pushed for me, it was that when we started out, it was just it was a small group and just a few of us from what I saw. And the thing was, for me, I ran tournaments at Mercer University a while before, and I always wanted to try to find a way to push out and push out like, hey, we have fighting games and stuff like that. And I just had passion. For me, my other thing was passion. And I would go to other people in dorms and stuff like that and say, hey, we have a fighting game tournament, we have a Smash tournament, we have Call of Duty tournament, whatever. I would go out and spread the word and walk around and say, hey, no, we got this, video game club, this and this and this. So that carried over to the Reboot, and where we just found ourselves when starting out was like always like the same 8 people, the same 10 people or whatever. And then I thought about like hey, let's get together and carpool and start going out to other scenes. There were a few times where Terrence, FGCJesus, a few others came to our place, but I was like, well, we want people to come to us, but let's go to them. Let's like get out of our bubble. Let's go and expand our horizon. So that year, 2018, or 17, 18, that's when we started like traveling to other scenes and just going to Gwinnett Brawl a lot and going to Data +2 and Block here and there, and kind of like expressing our passion like, hey, this is us, here we are. And then a few people outside of our area was like, oh, that's cool, y'all guys have a scene, so we'll let you know, we'll spread the word. If we can't make it, we'll do that. So it was just for our my drive to expose ourselves no matter what. Wouldn't care if people were interested or not. If we get a chance, be like Jehovah's Witness, be annoying, be that type, maybe not that annoying, but be like, not Jehovah's not annoying, but like be that, to the point where that presence is like, hey, we're here, this is what we're about, what we're gonna do. And as a result, with the exposure and with us marketing ourselves to where we started to using the social media to present ourselves more, next thing you know, we'll have 5 new people to come to our area Reboot and like, who are these guys? And they find out they're making the whole time, and for some reason they had no idea that we've been around for a year or so. But next thing you know, they heard it from a friend, word of mouth. They went to a store, saw a flyer, and they started coming in, and they started to come through. And this is weird because you can see our Discord, and it's like ridiculous to see the amount of people just from North Georgia now more than I never could imagine. So it was pretty much the having the passion, having people who care about the community, even though they're not consider themselves part of it, and pushing to expose ourselves. And that's where I see I don't see that much any as not as often now that obviously than before was that the fact that people I know people lose interest over time. Life goes on, like marriage and you know and work and this and this and this happening. But for it's something if you really like fighting games and so forth. If you really like this and for me it affected my life. So that I let it expose it being part of my life, and as a result, if you it may not be a whole lot of people to come through, but it kept enough people who were that saw our presence, who still had the passion for it. They're like, okay, well, we'll still come check it out. And then even they got tired of it, they will pass it on and let other people know about it. So now, like, we have so many people from outside of town, will ask us like, hey, when's the next reboot, or when you guys gonna come back, or what's going on, and so forth. But with the online tournaments, and that we started, and we also too had to learn to adapt and evolve with the era of the technology. And of course, people outside of the community are starting to see that. And it's like, okay, well, the fighting community now doing online stuff. Well, there's a way that we could try to help you guys out and so forth. And I just no, I just started reaching out, and that's really pretty much like was a big factor for me.
Okay. All right. Well, well enough then. I definitely do respect what you're doing out there in making, giving these guys a place to come through and play and run games. And you've always had an open heart to accepting people from just outside of making coming through. You make them feel like they're powder. They're a part of the making scene. Very social. Hey, how you doing? Talking to people and stuff like that. Just making them feel like they're welcome. Just the communication is a big thing. I've always said to as far as like keeping a scene strong, and the people too as well. When you lose that, when you no longer have that communication, no one's talking to each other anymore, and the people they're just not interacting anymore. Your community is done. Regardless of not even just in this state, like that's just in general. That's just a general statement that I have. Like if you don't have that communication, it just won't work. It's not going to work.
I sort of have a
So
few points to add on to that,
all
if
right,
I
talk to
may.
me.
Hmm.
Yes, sir.
Now, let me preface this by saying, since I have essentially shut down FGC Fight Club, I've made friends with a couple of the locations which used to run FGC tournaments, so Access Replay, etc. I know their owners. In fact, even specifically for Access Replay, I know the owners, Josh and Allie. We play regular tabletop RPG games together. I have a couple of situations about why there aren't more places opening up to tournament play. So from the get go, I've got this one story that's a particularly recent happening, and it involves the venture Coca Cola Gaming, where guys probably know about this, but Coca Cola
Hmm.
decided to create an esports event. Um, and they were offering a free place for Tekken players to compete, get free food, drinks, and there was a free DJ, and they rented out a venue in the middle of the city. Um, and as soon as they had come up with this, like, bear in mind, this is how businesses work. This was a business venture. They didn't have a Twitter yet. They didn't have any market research. This event was going to be their market research.
Hmm.
They contacted Access Replay to plug their event. Now, Access Replay retweeted or plugged the Coca Cola event. Well, they plugged the event because Coca Cola Gaming did not have its own Twitter yet. And as soon as they did so, the 404 Esports boys just started dogpiling on that Twitter. They stormed that tweet and sort of started focusing a shit ton of blame onto Axis Replay, who were merely invited to the event and asked to retweet. They weren't under contract to do anything. They weren't providing any equipment. Um, and all of a sudden, these Tekken boys just come out of the blue and just start flaming their business. And I personally got involved in that Twitter war, telling people, look, leave Axis alone. This isn't their thing. If you the issue was apparently that Coca-Cola had stolen the idea to run this event, but you know,
Stolen the idea.
when I hear the words Coca-Cola and them being interested in the Tekken community, all I was seeing for the Tekken community was dollar signs in my eyes. But after this event, which by the way, I got tickets to the event and I went, almost no one showed up. So before Coca-Cola, one of the largest companies in the world, could even understand how to approach the fighting game community, it had already been set on fire and kicked out the door. Um, all because people were really adamant on protecting 404 Esports' good name or something like that. I like Greg. I think that if something was stolen from him, that sure, maybe something should have been done about that. But from what I understand, there were no contracts signed. There was no official business anywhere that would have made this an actual theft. It's just seeing the FGC just dogpile on this big corporation trying to understand them and put a big influx of money into their community. That's a huge sponsor you guys scared away. Similarly, Axis Replay, who used to run these events for you guys, I've had conversations with both the owner, Allie, and her husband, who's sort of like, he does most of the technical work on the computers and stuff there, and they've explained to me that whenever they run FGC events, specifically tournaments, they don't make any money. They always lose money. No one bought concessions. No one, bought, like, membership time. No one did almost anything. They would just go there, they'd pay their venue fee, they'd bring their own food, which was a reason why Axis had to start, saying that people couldn't bring their own food in anymore because they sold food there. People would come in and they'd bring out baggies of food. Um, and to a business owner, the idea of running an FGC event is a nightmare because a lot of FGC people are very rude to business owners. They treat this space very poorly, and they don't seem to understand from a business perspective why why they're taking a huge risk on this, because it's almost never actually worth the amount of time or effort you put into it. And I can say this myself as someone who essentially ran FGC Fight Club myself. The time and effort I put into it was out of love, but it was a lot of time and effort, and I didn't even get paid. So I'm hearing these things, and they're like, well, you know what the actual money in the FGC was? The actual money was in running casuals, because then people weren't afraid to lose money on buying drinks and food. They could actually just enjoy themselves. And so I've heard this story from several different businesses. They are afraid of the FGC because they come in, they're often rude or mess things up for the actual business owner themselves, and then the business owner ends up losing money. And without Darius here, without the final round people here, Shin Blanca, I can't remember his actual name. People who
Larry.
truly loved the community and commanded a certain deal of respect from them. Without those people here to help other people organize, unfortunately, there's not a good liaison between the general rowdiness of the FGC and the business world.
people just sort of refuse to accept that there's like a business side to esports and video gaming, and treat it as though it's less important than the quote unquote ground roots movement that's been built here. And so nothing ever gets to progress. Nothing ever becomes profitable, and so nobody ever messes with it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And now let me ask you: was there an official statement made in response to this from Greg from 404 about this situation? About the situation?
The Coca-Cola situation?
Yeah. Was there a statement
No,
made from
Greg
him?
doesn't
No, there
work in
was not.
official statements. He just went on Twitter and posted some stuff about how it was his idea and how it was shady. And Axis
Oh,
had to sort of say, "Hey, we didn't have anything to do with this." And
wow.
Coca-Cola is too big of a company to even care. So they sort of just said, "All right, well, you guys don't want our money? Pull out."
Yeah, I like to kind of add in on this because I'm actually currently in the middle of the kind of scenario that's what's happening. So if y'all guys have noticed that, lately we have a group called Swag Out Nerds, who's pretty much heavily involved with making Middle Georgia FGC. And I will tell you how initially that reaction was as far as, when I first met them. Well, when I first met them, it was randomly at the arcade bar. We talked for a few minutes, had some interest in like tournament. And I told him that I run tournaments and so forth. And the guy, Jason, shout out to him, CEO of the company, was like, hey, well, I like to want to run tournaments. I want to try to get involved and see what you guys do and everything like that. So, for me, it at first, I had that moment of skepticism. Because like I said in the past, I heard stories from y'all guys about how this company came in and screwed us over, or this company came in and did this and did that, or Skillshot or whatever, and so forth, Yomi Gaming, all the horror stories. So, and for a long time, I would say that yes, I think the FC have a huge scar that that's no, has been on it for a long time. It's a huge wound, huge as wound for sure. So back to the story. I'll be quick with it. It was just where when, of course, over time we started meeting, and at the same time I met city officials in our area about wanting to run a tournament, and no one noticed this, but I actually was drinking a lot of wine when I talked to the guy who's going to be running for mayor. And I ended up showing him, I think DreamHack in Atlanta at the time, and he was like, "Yeah, this is I don't know what's going on, but I like to get involved with this. I want to do this and do that. I want to put you guys in a big stadium and so forth, so forth." And when I brought the news back to our guys in the to our FTC crew, and they were like, some eyes were lit, and some were like, and I had a few backlashes here and there, and so I'm pushing. So over time though, I decided, you know what, let me see if I can meet with them. So I met with Swag Out Nerds, met with Visit Making, the officials there, and had meetings and so forth. And of course there was some other people like Chris from Smash community and so forth. But there was a bit of a rift where people were like, some of the members, some of the FGC guys were like, okay, why are we here? How do we know that we can trust these people? They don't care about us. They this and this and so forth. I'm not sure about the esports. And then at the same time, some of them were like, well, I want to get sponsored. I want this and this and this and so forth. But so, me right now, I'm literally in building that bridge where Swag on Nerds down there, they start doing their offer to run so Swag on Nerds Cup tournaments, ranking tournaments. They put $100 plus dollars in the prize pools. They want to try to look at have sponsorships. They want to have all these partnerships. They have websites. They have this their organization. And it's an organization, but they want to invest into local scenes and local business and local things. They want to look out for the little guys. However, when I will try to bring that to the FGC in our area, people, I'll get finding looks and concerns, and like, what are they doing? Why they're not talking to us? Why they're not this? Why they're this? And so forth, so forth, so forth. Or we don't know because I saw someone got sponsored and they didn't get nothing out of it. They get screwed over, and it's really it's really hard like to try to convince the rest of the community, the FGC community, that hey, there is a potential organizations that actually can care about us, and I believe one of them is Bag on Nerds. So, and this really was it's more that we might talk on later on, the fact like how can we bridge that gap between the grassroots, the rawness of the FGC to the more, you can, if sophisticated, for lack of a better word, more established professionalism of the esports slash organization, teams and so forth. It and like I look on Twitter and I have seen stuff about the Coca-Cola situation with 404 with access replay, and it's really it's like a never ending story, and now like I'm trying to work on a way where I'm trying to talk to other FGC scenes out, like Alabama, hopefully Columbus and so forth, to hey, let's get together and try to put an event and so forth, and and then Swag on Nerds, who I'm now part of, they are involved, and I know that some people are kind of like, well, if you're part of the community, that's cool, but if you're part of this organization, then there's something we have to deal with you have to deal with. And I'm like, okay, well, the thing is, there is going to be a point that we have to have some type of structure, a foundation, like I said, a business of a sort. Is both, because right now it's going to be a point where we'll be on two sides of the same coin if we're not already are. But we have to like be at the point, we have to form that union. It's like, I know it's not easy, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't mean to cut you off, but it sounds like your mic is going out there.
And
Like
no,
it's
he's having connection issues. I see that between his voice and the stream, there's a hiccup.
okay. Yeah.
We're
Yeah, it
going,
was kind of
To
cutting out
his
there.
point, though,
but I do have it. I do have recorded backup, just in case.
Okay.
fine. I would like to say to your point, uh, Dosa Kim, the or Dosa, the uh, the 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 basically the funder of FGC Fight Club, um, having been so burnt by the FGC and being like a really smart businessman himself, came in knowing basically nothing, right? He's one of these people you're talking about. You want people from the outside to come in and invest this crazy money in this sport that we love. And like you want our sport to thrive and have good players and good experiences. Well, he comes in and he does this and he gets screwed over by everybody fighting over the same 40, maybe 30 or 40 people, sometimes even less. And it's like, to him, to a business owner, it looks like crabs in a bucket. Everybody's fighting over a $40 prize pot, and it just doesn't look good. There has to be like this point in the FGC where we look at ourselves and we say, are we willing to take the momentary sacrifice to let there be somebody else in control over the greater like structure of this thing? That will, of course, mean that there's a little bit more exclusivity, probably like, any other kind of league-based play where there's like a skill cap or a skill check at some point. But like, if we want this thing to be profitable, to be worth our time, to be as big as it can be and get in front of as many people as it goes, it it needs to be more than grassroots, you know?
Right,
It
right.
needs to be more than poke chop, like asking for fucking bets when we're in a TV studio. Like, that's Bless Pokechop's heart. He is the most successful fighting game person I know. And I have a huge amount of respect for him because his hustle is supreme. It
Right,
is the
right.
supreme hustle.
Bar none. Bar none. He even spoke up. He even spoke up saying that the opinions on from the Tekken players that were, I guess, bad mouthing and addressing Access Replay
Oh
do not
yeah.
represent the community as a whole. So when he said that, when he made that statement, he gained infinite respect for me just for
Oh
that.
yeah. No.
Because
Uh,
yeah, the fact that the person, the company owner didn't, you know, didn't engage in that is kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. But yeah, I'm
well,
sorry. Go
here's
ahead,
the thing.
continue.
Look, Axis, they have one person who handles their social media, and it's not the person who owns the business. It's a part timer. You're all yelling at a part timer. Like that whole situation got me personally because I know everybody who works there, and they are good people. They're hardworking people, and they're just trying to run a business. And it's not even like an FGC business, you know? They're like a tech company. And to have these people just come after them for no reason, like really bothered me.
Mm.
So my original point is that there has to at some point be like this willingness to engage in the awful capitalist system of esports if we want this thing to get bigger. Because personally, I don't think there's any more design things that can be done to fighting games to make them anything other than what they are. You know, they are at its heart an arcade affair. Two people, a test of skill, no teams, right?
Right.
Or maybe that is changing a little bit, but like
Ultimately, yeah,
it's
you're good
always
there.
going to be what it is. It is a test of skill as opposed to a test of luck, as opposed to, yeah. There has to be a narrative and like an overarching thing that keeps it in the public consciousness, much like League, much like any of the MOBAs, much like Call of Duty. And I just don't think the way it is now is going to get to that place. Even with the Riot game coming up, I still don't think that's going to be the case.
Yeah, it's there's just a lot of what I want to say. What backstage politics? I mean, you've already expressed about the situation with we've already talked about the situation with Access Replay and Coca Cola.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a lot of backstage things. I mean, you wouldn't think that, right? You wouldn't think just a simple fighting game scene for a state would just have all of this going on, but it's actually a key part as to making everything function. It's a part of the wheel that turns the gears to keep the community moving. Is the
Yeah,
people, and
without an
so it's
overarching structure that keeps
yeah,
cohesion in a community, we really can only rely on the individual people who go out of their way to do extra work for the people who are already there. The tournament runners, the commentators, the players. Without like, I hate to say it, an awful soulless corporate business saying like we need these people to do these things, then those people need to do those things without being told. And that sort of isn't happening right now, you know.
Pretty much.
much. And we're at a standstill. So it's like there's no progress being made towards trying to get that. Um, well, I'm not going to say there's no progress because Sir Retro is doing what he's doing out in his scene, and Augusta's doing what they're doing out in their scene. But
Yeah.
as far as our players are, I feel like our players are. I mean, we're just. Let me see how can I put this. Our players are. I feel like we're just there. Like we're there. Like I don't some of us has even stopped playing the game altogether. Like either they stop playing the game or they just don't have the interest in the game or just moved on to a different game altogether. And those numbers are starting to dwindle down, dwindling and dwindling and dwindling. And now you got these tournaments if they decide to host them. Now you got these 3 to 5 people or 3 to 8 people, just for a bracket. And like you said, it all goes back to companies losing money and stuff like that. And it just cycles on, and we just like the support just not there. It's just not there. Um, but we're gonna I'm gonna dive back to that. I'm gonna circle around back to that. What I wanted to do is to get into a quick question portion of that. I had to shave down some of the questions because that VIP, originally the one of the owners of Gwinnett Brawl, was supposed to have
Yes,
joined
I
us,
I
but
really
they weren't
wish
able to.
Dap was here. I wanted to ask him
Yeah.
about the monetary aspects of Gwinnett Brawl and whether or not it was profitable or anything like that.
And that's fair. I mean, this is that type of discussion where you can, yes, we're getting it all out the systems, everything. Just let's go. All right. So because that bit wasn't here, so I had to cut down on some few questions. So Doggy, since we haven't heard your voice in a while, we're just gonna start off
Hello.
with something light. Yeah, before we're gonna start off with something light before we get to the heavy stuff. Now the heavy questions are gonna come later, so we're just gonna get a few things to kind of like ease the tension before we get there. Um, Let me ask you. So, who introduced you to fighting games in Georgia, and how did you find the Georgia FGC?
Who introduced me to fighting games in Georgia? Both. When we say fighting games, are we talking about Street Fighter, or can I include what often gets left out, which is Smash?
Before that, if it
Because
was before then, if it was before Street
no,
Fighter, yeah.
okay, so the first thing I did in Georgia was Smash, was Melee. Who introduced me to like the Melee scene in Georgia? Myself,
Mhm.
because the way it panned out was I was playing when the game came out in high school, played a little bit with some friends, didn't really think too much of it, went to college, and there, just like in any other college, some resident host or resident organizer, whatever they're called, resident attendants, whatever, were holding tournaments, and I went and won all the tournaments for Melee, won all of them for Soul Calibur 3 at the time, and eventually I was like, well, I want to try something bigger. I looked around on the Smash boards, and I was like, what's a big tournament that's happening? Everybody should take a big college trip. I went down to Orlando for MLG, right? Went there, did okay. Not really too important for the discussion other than I did it, but I had a really good time. So I came back to college and I was like, do tournaments like this just happen anywhere? So I went back on Smash Boards and I looked into the regional zone. And I was like, do anybody just have tournaments in Georgia? Big tournaments, small tournaments, something that's not on my college campus. And that's where I found this tournament in Columbus called Get Four Stock. And I was like, Columbus is 3.5 hours. This is on a Saturday. Let me just drive over there and see what's happening. And drove over there, met a bunch of the people that some of them are still in the community to this day. Reflex in Georgia West specifically. I can rattle off a bunch of names that nobody would know of, but met a whole lot of people, traded the contacts with them, and throughout the years, I just stuck with them. Went to a couple events over in Columbus, up in Atlanta, and what eventually led me getting into the Georgia scene as a whole was actually the next year when one of my local friends, one Shinryatsu, went up to final round 10, right? Went up there, played Soul Calibur. I can't remember how well he did. He did pretty well, and that ultimately led to him saying he had a pretty good time. He's like, you should go out to the next one. So next one was final round 11. They didn't have Smash, but I was like, I'll go. I'll see what's happening. I'll see what's up. And that's the first time I got to go meet some of the people from Georgia because I didn't really stay and play too many games because what I was playing wasn't there at the time. But it's why I really started to get interested in Guilty Gear again, and why I turned around and entered Guilty Gear next year at final round. 12 was the first year they had 4, if I remember correctly, which is why I wasn't playing 4 at the time. But basically, who got
Was
me
that
in?
the I'm sorry to cut you off. Was that the first year, the birth of that meme that you got to be this tall to enter the
Yep,
bracket? Was that
yep.
that year?
That was final round 12.
Oh my god.
You must have just saw the play Street
Yeah.
Fighter 4 standing next to the paper bracket taped onto the table.
Oh my god, that is too legendary. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, like so to answer your question, who got me into fighting games, like into the Georgia scene altogether, me. But who got me into like the core of the Atlanta group, the core of the Georgia group, like final round and the surrounding entities, I would have to say it's my friend Shinryachi who was like, "Yo, let's go to final round next year."
Hmm. Okay. Okay. All right.
Ah.
And all right. So for same question to you, Mr. FGC Jesus. Who introduced you to fighting games, or how did you find the Georgia fighting game community?
It's actually interesting you asked that, but ever since I was 3 years old, I was playing Street Fighter 2 on the SNES. But as far as the competitive scene goes, in high school, I it was like my last day of my senior year, and I was with someone named Darian. I don't know if you guys ever knew him, but he was a Tekken player back in the day. Unfortunately, he lost his life to COVID a couple of years ago. It was very, very sad because he was the guy who introduced me to Third Strike. And so he brought a fucking entire CRT to school on the last day, like a big ass CRT, and the PS2 copy of Third Strike, and we sort of just played it for like the entire school day because it was one of those exam days where you didn't have to do anything.
Yup.
Right.
And
Okay.
after that, I just started going to every local event that I could. Back then, we had several different arcades that had pretty pristine cabinets of Marvel versus Capcom 2, Capcom versus SNK 2. You know, all the good stuff. And at those arcades, I met Koos and Heavyweight, and I just started going over to their places. And um, since then, I'd played in maybe like 50 to 60 tournaments over the course of my career, I guess, local and majors. I don't know. I just the Augusta crew turned me into a beast in Street Fighter Five, and when they stopped playing, I kind of took it on myself to be the best out of that town, and
To represent.
yeah, sadly, never really won any majors or anything. But also, I wasn't really able to afford to go out to all the majors I wanted to. It's our hobby is not cheap,
It's
not at all.
not.
But yeah,
But
it was mostly the Augusta crew that you guys know and love that taught me how to play. But
okay.
fun fact though, they wanted me to play Street Fighter 4, and to this day, I cannot fucking stand Street Fighter 4. I hate Street Fighter 4. I think it's the worst game. I think it's so bad and boring and gross to look at. I played Blaze Blue competitively before I played Street Fighter.
Huh.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, that's what's up on that origin story. Mine's is kind of like similar to yours, whereas someone in high school, a friend of mine's, name is goes by Dark Light. Is a player out there in the Ohio scene. Now he lives in Ohio. Used to live in North Carolina, but yeah, he introduced me when I lived in North Carolina. He
Mhm.
introduced me to fighting games. We were just friends. We met through someone else. Actually, he took us over and we just started just playing some Third Strike casuals. And he had like a custom MVC2 mix and stuff, and we just started playing that. And then he told us about a tournament that was happening in the state. And I didn't know that tournaments existed. I mean, hell, I was a Sean player. You know? I didn't know Sean was trash back then. I just played the character because he looked cool. And so I played Sean, and I of course I lost. I got body. But the fact that that I went to and experienced my first tournament up there just to see all these guys um, with the CRTs and stuff like that, the PS2s hooked up. Everybody call the TOs calling bracket matches and stuff like that, and I needed to come up with a nickname. I needed to. I guess everybody had their own nickname up there. Since he was Dark Light, I was like, well. let me see. I mean, my normal name is Ace, and there's this cool looking motorcycle that my neighbor has that's called a Shadow Ace. So I guess you can just call me Shadow Ace. So that's how the origin of my name started out from there. My neighbor had a really good, cool looking bike, so I just looked at that and I was like, okay, well that'll be my name then. And I entered and I played that. Um, got some experiences. Went back, trained up, got back again, went back again. Ended up beating a really, really strong Elena player in the scene, and he hated my guts from that day forward. So that's how I knew I was destined to try to get good at this thing. And it was around the time Street Fighter 4 was actually coming out, first dropping. Um, and how did I find out here? I moved down to Georgia a little bit after high school, like a few years after high school. I moved down to Georgia for my parents because of their work. It transferred them there, and and I just was looking on the forums for like places to play and stuff like that. And someone by name Iceman introduced me to the scene. He had a big session over at his house, and I went over there, played over there, and stuff like that. And say, hey, yeah, I'm moved here from North Carolina, and I'm new and stuff like that. And flash forward 15 years later, I'm here now. Just playing some Street Fighter 5 here and there online, but yeah, that's kind of how I got my start. Moved from North Carolina to Georgia, and ever since then, just been networking as far as like events and things of like nature. Then Impact Clash came up. They had it at the Georgia World Congress Center. That's how I met pretty much everybody from the Street Fighter 4 era back in that day. And that's when what brackets were like huge, like 50 to 100 people, 40 to 100 people back then, that when everyone was younger, and then now everybody's all old stuff. Yeah, it was a really, really good experience, man. It was a really good experience coming into the scene. It was much different back then. Folks were a little bit welcome, more welcoming and friendly and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I got my start. Um, and Sir Retro, same question for you. Who introduced you to fighting games, or how did you find the Georgia SDC?
Yeah. So kind of similar to I'll say FGCJesus. I played fighting games since I was a toddler, but competitively. Oh, of course, my name tag is actually interesting because retro is, of course, I love playing retro games. And a friend of mine kept calling me that as a nickname because of that. Second, um, the Sir actually comes from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who is the author of Sherlock Holmes, one of my favorite characters of all time. And 08 is my favorite lucky number, so that's why I kind of combined it together as Sir Retro 08. Um, and that pretty much started around like high school. When I played still casually, like Marvel 2, CVS and K2, Mortal Kombat, everything. But to be involved with the fighting community, seriously, it was surely after I was video game at Mercy University from 2011 2013 when I graduated. I was president, was the big face of the video game club in our university, and we ran Smash Brawl, Super Smash Brother Brawl, Call of Duty, Tekken Tattoo tournaments, occasionally there, and of course Smash was like the biggest game. But it was I didn't learn how to play more competitive, more fundamentally until Street Fighter 4 and Marvel's Capcom 3 came out. So I'm pretty much an 09er in that sense, and so I'm kind of more the the baby or the newest in this group right now to the party. But
Yeah, you consider old now. Congratulations.
yeah, yeah, fair enough, fair enough. But yeah, but it wasn't until shortly after Marvel vs. Capcom 3 came out and we started watching things on Justin.tv. I forgot how we discovered that, but we discovered that, yeah, that was before Twitch. Before Twitch, so if people don't know in the chat, before Twitch, there was Justin.tv and watched the Marvel vs. Capcom 3 tournaments, vanilla Marvel vs. Capcom 3. seeing these people like, who's this Justin Wong? Who's this Chris G? Who, no, we got exposure just at that level, just watching them. And then we found out about Team Spooky at the time, Evo 2011. No, we start. So I pretty much, most of us played more casually, but we watched a lot of the huge major tournaments, and then found out a couple of years later until final round happened, and realized that final round was happening in Atlanta, and we were like, "Wait, we have a tournament scene like this here, bruh."
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's the idea. Where like that's the moment where we start like, hey, we need to kind of break out a bubble and just not sit around the dorms. Let's go out and try to attend these events. Let's take a trip for the video game club. But of course, I graduated from college from Mercer University. But I still hung around because I found I was still working Macon. But when I got really competitive, when Smash 4 came out in 2014, and I met Type of House Games, aka T Rex, the main head of it, Chris. Shout outs to him. So, and that's the same time I learned to also learn how to become a TO, because they needed some help and running a bracket. And I was like, hey, well, y'all guys need some help or so forth for me. I had nothing to do. And they were like, yeah. Well, this is how you run a bracket. This is how you use challenge and da. I got involved with that. So I learned I became a TO underneath Type of House Games when they ran tournaments at Mercer shortly after I graduated, because the video game club actually continued after we left, and I thought it was gonna be I thought it would be over when I left, but it's still here today. So that's been 11 years ago. So yeah, but competitively, 2016 is when I really made a mark. And it started with Momocon. I went to my first exposure to the full FGC scene was final round 2016. So that year, and but it's where like, whoa, this is a huge thing. Like, this is the best players in the world. Like the exposure to see people like the players, I would hear about and see on Twitch, Justin.tv, and then eventually the rise on Twitch and all that stuff. See them in person. Like it was amazing. Like I will never forget that weekend. But also, of course, the other end of the week, that part of the weekend, I won't forget, unfortunately. But but that's where I also at the same time competitively started making my mark, actually in Smash 4, and I will, if they not people may say it, but I was one, if not the best, Lil Mac in the Middle Georgia area, and I have caused upsets in the in a place in Atlanta and a few other places in tournaments, and a lot of people used to hate me for Lil Mac, but and that's I used to play like a lot of low tier characters, and still kind of do to somewhat to this day, but that's pretty much my competitive mark. And since then, later that year, in 2016 when Reboot opened up, and that was the opportunity for me to kind of like step in and get truly involved with the world of the FGC, and of course being a TO, running tournaments, and to now here we are. So that's pretty much a short story of how I got involved and got competitively. So it was pretty much me and a group of friends from college. We got into the fighting game competitive stuff together.
Okay. All right. Now, Doggy Savage, question for you. What was I think you may have already answered it, but I just want to make sure. I want to double check.
Okay.
What was the first tournament you attended in Georgia? And I was gonna say what game did you play, but I think you've already mentioned you started out in melees with Smash Melee.
Right.
So
So
yeah, go ahead.
fighting game community, like again, because if we're just gonna encompass everything, it's get four stock in Columbus for melee. If we're talking about like more of the Street Fighter centric, it would be Final Round 11, whatever year
Hmm.
that is. I never remember the years. I just remember the numbers.
That so final round 12 was the bracket.
Right.
Was the
Final
that
round,
you must meet it the year
yeah.
before that you went to that one.
Right. Final Round 11. The big hallmarks of that one was Flash Metroid versus Latif in Guilty Gear. That was a winners finals match, and it was the one that apparently everybody in the community was looking for, and people were literally side betting their arcade sticks on it.
Oh god.
Man.
12
Wow.
was the power bracket, as I called it, for Street Fighter 4. I want to say that was the first year the Koreans came over for Tekken as well. I'm pretty
That
sure that
was
was the first year the Koreans came over for Tekken, because I remember Tekken was a big deal, but at some point a lot of people weren't interested in Tekken because it was Atlanta versus Atlanta. But which was like somewhere in the middle of the bracket leading to the end. But yeah, I want to say that was a big hallmark for 12. But answering your question, first one for me, final round 11.
final round 11 was the very first tournament you attended. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And now FGC Jesus, same question to you. First tournament you attended in Georgia, and what game did you play?
Now, do you mean first major or first tournament?
First tournament in Georgia.
Because
You
I couldn't
attended.
even tell you my first tournament. It's been so
Oh,
long, and my memory is
it's
so
been so long
garbage.
ago.
But I can tell you the fun story of my first major.
Okay.
Well, my first
Very
major
first
was
major.
final round 19. This is the first time I've
Ooh.
ever been to a major, and I'm playing Street Fighter 5 in season 1. Back then, I
Mm,
used to play Rashid, and I went by the handle Pasta. Now, I get up.
Pasta.
It's the first day, first match on stream up against Jabali. On a whim, I decide to play Fang, and I go up there and I get soundly, roundly, and profoundly defeated. Now, I still have a video of this. I looked like a straight train wreck. I had my hair all out. I was skinny. I was looking at the camera. I was playing up. I was having fun. I didn't really so much mind that I lost. I believe I got to losers finals in my bracket, in my pool rather. But come to learn the next day on Twitter, people had said, "Yo, Jabali crucified Jesus on stream. Rest in pasta." And ever since then, I've called myself FGC Jesus.
Wow.
Yo, I like that. Yeah, it all started from there. From the Jabali. Who was Jabali playing? Was they playing Cammy back then too?
Playing Ryu.
For you? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So yeah, my very first tournament in Georgia. Oh my God, we gotta take this all the way back. I want to say it was Impact Clash because I think that led up to me going towards. I think because people were talking about final round, like the veterans who are already there. I think they were already talking about like attending final round. So I'm new. I'm coming new into the scene. I don't know anybody or anything like that. So I think Impact Clash is where I've heard about it. And then I checked the forums, the shoryuken.com forums back then, and found out a little bit more information about it and went there. But I think my first one was Impact Clash because I played El Fuerte, and I just played the character because he ran and did crazy stuff. And I remember that I had no FGC experience outside of what just playing casually with Sean and Third Strike. I didn't have any experience, so I just chose Fuerte because he just looked like a fun character to use. And I think that's how I ended up finding out about that final round. But I think one of my first was Impact Clash here. So yeah, that'll kind of hold a candle to my heart there. For that. So yeah, man. So each of us had a little good little experience about our first tournaments here. Who introduced us to fighters and things of that nature. Now let me ask you, Dogysamich, what was one of your fondest Georgia tournament memories?
give me a second, I have to think.
Mhm.
Hmm. I mean, I guess one of the good ones to pick was, and this goes into the theme of what we were talking about earlier with the community being in such disarray. One, because of not having a place to go are really finding a place to go because of how the community is too, because of the state of how everything is. Do you remember the for first season? Yes, the first season of Red Bull Battlegrounds. First season of Red Bull Battlegrounds that was ran out of the newly reopened Waba Games that was in the I think it was in the Gwinnett Mall. I don't remember what mall it was. I don't remember the name of the mall, but it was one that was
I rem-
really close to the wasteland.
I remember it was. I remember there. I remember a Red Bull Proving Grounds. It was in a mall, and it was like in this. Not, I'm not gonna say strip club, but it was like in a nightclub.
It was
Or
in
was that
a oh no, you're thinking of
Rambats?
no, yeah, you were thinking of the Rambast because that was down the street
Okay.
from Chipotle. No, I'm talking about the battlegrounds that was in the first season of Street Fighter Five. Because this was actually when Drew came around, at least Drew and Couscous, because we I did the commentary with Coos. And
Okay.
the thing I liked about it so much is again, we hadn't seen everybody in a while. This was another like big break and stuff. I want to say that was shortly after Emotions was a thing.
Emotions, yo.
Right. And
Man.
like everybody got back together. We hadn't seen everybody in a while. And we took a picture that is currently my banner on Twitter. And for the time, that was a good representation of the people who were like the old vanguard, if you will, and some, not all, because it's definitely not all, but some of the newer players that were coming up to represent the scene at the time.
Y- Yep. We had that's when we had Black White Boy. I think that's when didn't he win? He won. Didn't he win one of those before? Like one of those Red Bull proving ground things, or I think
He
he may
he,
have gotten top.
he did.
I'm trying to remember.
He did. Black
It
White
is
Boy
him or
better.
Joel.
They both won events. Like there was largely between those two, Terrence,
Terrence.
uh
Uh,
man, it's been so long.
it's been that's a long time, man. That's a long time, but that was like season one though, right? That was
It
like
was literally season one.
season one. Okay.
Yeah, again, that was my point. It's like the game had recently come out. Again, it'd been a while since people had really been together, and just to see everybody get back together, know that some people are sticking with it. We didn't know that they were gonna not be around long for either not liking the game or just life catching up to them. But also seeing that there were some new people that were trying to come up.
Mm,
So it's one of the first good memories that comes to my mind.
mm, okay.
Like
So like
the
the growth
potential,
period, the potential.
the potential and the hope.
That there's light at the end of the tunnel. That there was hope. That there was a glimmer of chance that the scene could be back to its healthy state. Possibly. Let me see. So my one of my fondest memories was I think it was at a Gwinnett Brawl. When they started holding it wasn't a Sunday tournament. I think it was like they started doing like maybe weeklies or something. And I had to play Ice Effect. I had to play Ice Effect in I want to say losers finals. I want to say it was losers finals or it was a really tense match. Like it just made everybody come over. Like even if they weren't, even whatever other game they were playing, they stopped to come over just to watch it. And I think the clip is probably somewhere still on Twitch somewhere. And I think Mag Negro, I think that used to be his notification icon was Shin Phoenix's reaction to the match after it happened. It used to be his old notification icon, but I think that was probably like my fondest memory because I think that was like my breakout point, and it was when Ed was like super bad in the game, like kind of easily the worst character. And this is like early season, either mid season two, mid or like yeah, I think it was like season two, sometime around season two. But that was kind of like one of my fondest was getting the W over that, simply because this I was playing a character that struggled for life back in that season, and Ice Effect was one of our strongest players in the scene, and I think now they don't really play the game as much anymore, or like they stopped playing. But yeah, they were like one of our best lures here uh, in Georgia. So uh, same question to you, FGCGs. What was one of your fondest Georgia tournament memories?
That'd probably be one of two things. One would be the first Atlanta Gwinnett Brawl I went to. It was the first time I'd ever stepped into Gwinnett Brawl. And I immediately started up a conversation with one dude about controllers. And I was telling him, oh, yeah, I've been wanting to get a Hori Fight Commander. And he's like, oh, yeah, I've got one of those right here. You want to play a set? And we played a set, right? And I beat him 12, maybe 13 times in a row. And he stood up and he took the controller out of the socket, rolled it up and handed it to me and said, yeah, I heard you wanted one of these. And then he walked out.
Huh.
Yeah, I actually got my first Hori Fight Commander from bullying somebody. And the second story would be at my
I'm sorry,
first...
that's just so good.
What? Wait, they
That's
just
just-
walked out. They're like, yo, I'm
Yeah,
done.
you
I'm
walked
outta
out. You
here.
left, bro.
Like, bro.
Yo.
Did you
The
ever see him
second
again
best.
after that?
No, I never saw that guy
You
again.
never saw him after that day?
No, I never
What?
saw him again after that.
Survival of the fit, man.
Yo.
Now, the second story is just as good. It was my first Smash tournament that I ever competed in. It was one of these majors. And I was just, trying to see if I could play Smash for shits and giggles. I got pretty roundly wrecked by this one dude in my first round. So I went and slept with his sister in his hotel room.
Well, that's
That
well,
was my
geez.
second best memory.
Well, that is your fondest memory from the Georgia tournament scene. It's bullying
Fuck
and
that guy.
yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, so retro, same question. What one of your fondest memories? Your Georgia tournament fondest memory.
Um. Yeah, I'll say my favorite. It's two for me. Well, one is very short. Like my favorite one, 2019. The last final round we went to, or last final round in general. Um, we got a suite, and we had pretty much all the best players from like Soul Calibur, Street Fighter, maybe Tekken, come over to our suite, hung out, and we had the money match between Big Bates and Sonata. Back then he was called MG, and Blaze Blue cross tag for $50. Man, that was the funniest match I ever watched. It was great. I didn't find a video for it, but it was crazy. Well, yeah, that was like a fun money match. And then also, I think we had at least 10 or 12 players from Middle Georgia to compete. But the year before that was the biggest fondest memory. I think 2018, I believe, was we had 10 players from Middle Georgia. We all competed. None of us went 0-2. I think we at least went at the least like maybe 1-2 or 2-2. But we like it was just for me the fondest because the fact of the progress we were focused on like running this because we used to run I run sessions. I used to always run sessions for months, well for years and stuff at Reboot, and we would train, go to tournaments, train, practice. And of course, when you go to most of the majors or whatever, or like we go to the final round, we would get wiped out. And we will worry about getting better, beating players way better than us. But I push for a lot of sessions online, offline, for every single day for like nearly 2 years and so forth. In 2018, 10 of us went to final round at that time. We all competed in Smash Brothers, Dragon Ball, Street Fighter, and Tekken, and we barely went. No, none of us went 0-2 or everything. And to see the progress was just like made me happy as a no, the coach, because I'm considered now called coach now, and the other stuff. But yeah, that's to see the growth of the community for me as a player, as players. So that's my fondness.
Okay. All right, that's what's up. From spicy to wholesome, that's the direction we went in. So I respect that from both of you guys being up and honest about that. So yeah. So just got one more question before we get to the spicy stuff. Speaking of spice, just just a quick little humorous question. Street Fighter Five related. Um, is Street Fighter Five Cammy broken, yo? FGC Jesus, go.
No, she's not broken. I mean, she's just like I don't understand people who say she's broken. Like she has gaps. She's got a good DP, I guess, and like really explosive, like not even damage. I can't even say she has good damage because I don't think she does. But even as somebody who plays a character where everyone says Fang loses to Cammy, I never feel super particularly hard pressed whenever I play that character. You just block until she makes a mistake and then kill her. She has no health. Every Cammy player uses all of her tools almost immediately.
Oh man, but she just the fact that she just has the best the best grappler in the game. The
Look,
walking the
man, look.
classic
Here's
stand
the
light
thing.
kick grab, tick grab, yo.
I guess, but that's why I just always mash grab whenever she's near me.
Oh goodness, every time, just
Now,
like
I
you just
can't
don't
say
want
that
her
it
to
always
grab you.
works, but I can say I have a pretty good idea of when it will after I do it.
Just want her to get away from you. You just don't want her near
No, no,
you.
you don't want Cammy to get away from you, actually. You want her to stay in your face.
Oh,
You want her to
okay.
stay in your face until she throws out enough buttons that she can't actually press a plus button anymore.
And then you got to deal with what the dive kicks. You got to deal with
Yeah,
dive
but
kicks
every
and stuff
character
like
has a
that.
way to deal with dive kicks. Probably.
Yeah, we got V shift now. Yay, V shift.
It's just fun. I like it. It's
Fun stuff,
fine.
yeah. But yeah, Cammy is definitely one of those characters that ridiculously fast
I mean, I'm more
walk
worried
speed.
about like Luke,
Luke, you
and I
think
think
Luke is
what's her
the
name,
problem child?
the motorcycle lady is more annoying than Cammy is.
Akira.
Yeah,
Kara, really? Interesting. Okay.
it's not even that she's like better than Cammy. I just think that you spend the entire match watching her walk backwards at light speed. It's
Hmm.
super irritating. They don't do anything until you press a button.
And then you just got the elbow in your face, and now they're in your face.
Big ass,
Oh,
giant, standing heavy kick time.
there it is. Give me that crush counter, yo. All right, and all right. So yeah, now we got the fun stuff out of the way. Now this is where I would say the portion of the oh, I'm sorry. Let me ask you. I didn't ask the other guys. Retro. Is Street Fighter Five Cammy broken?
Mm, I actually, yeah, I'll say no. I agree. FGC Jesus, no. Even
No.
like even in the early seasons, she was ridiculous to deal with. But I played Alex, who, I mean, then again at the time I played Alex, so I had not a fun time, but I learned to deal with the matchup somehow. And it's weird. I can deal with that matchup better than I can deal with G, using G.
Mm.
But as far as the character, watching her and seeing her, I don't think she's no. I honestly don't think she's broken. Like, nah. Like she has good movement and speed and everything, but as far as like trying to she don't have everything that can. Yeah. Now she has fireball. That's a problem, but no.
They gave Cammy a fireball. She'd be more of a
Yeah.
problem there. It's just that when she gets you in that corner, it's just not a fun time, man. Not a fun time. Maybe my character archetype just has trouble dealing with that particular type of pressure, but I think for other characters, they can fight her a bit better. but for my character, it's just a pain to deal with the matchup wise. But yeah, that's dog. You've commentated several of these Street Fighter events and seen some Cammy action in your time. Is Street Fighter Five Cammy broken?
No, and this is the Keep It 100 stream, right? I get to
A
express how
hundred,
I
a
really
hundred.
feel. I
Go
think
for
that's
it.
really
A thousand.
I think that's a really trash question to ask. And I think it's trash because you specifically use the word broken. And that's a word that is thrown around very loosely. Although if you correctly use the word, it clearly defines what you're asking. So by you asking me is Cammy broken, you're asking me, does she operate outside of the intended design of the game? And if you say she's broken, just like the company itself is trying to make all of these meme videos for on their content, show me where she operates outside of that. I'm not trying to
Outside of the design of the game.
outside
Show
of the
you
intended
how
design.
she not play the outside of the extended excuse me intended design of the game. Like how does she
Yes.
play outside of that system?
Yeah, how does she literally play outside of Street Fighter 5?
Throws,
Oh,
throws in the
wait. So
corner.
no other characters have throws in the corner?
They do,
Okay.
but she's a character. She's a character that gets more off of it because of that.
You're
Because
speaking.
of her
You
walk
look. You're
speed.
dealing with every character used to have a tick grab. Cammy still has her tick grab. It's not crazy. Just deal with it.
It's really good, but guess what? You kick
Talk
throws,
to me.
they're a thing, right? Okay, dive kicks, right? She can change her trajectory in the air. That's a move that was given to her and is functioning as intended. Is it really good in the context of what's happening in the game? Yes, but is it literally functioning a way that it should not? No.
I see
It's
what you're
just
saying.
really
I see what
good.
you're saying.
I will
It's
give you
really good.
I will give you the classic example. This is an OG fighting game example, okay, outside of Street Fighter. But if you know this is the literal example of what broken means. Do you know about Ivan Ooze in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers fighting game on Super Nintendo?
I do
I
know about some
do.
Ivan Ooze.
Thank you. That is a broken character. Why is that character broken? Because that is a character that can literally remove himself from hit stun at will. That is a character that literally cannot be hit low and literally cannot be thrown because he is flying. Literally flies around at any point in time. Can throw a fireball at you and then throw another one before you get out of recovery and literally keep you in block stun as long as he chooses. That is a broken character. Cammy is a really strong character. And again, I'm not the one to honestly gauge her strength because, like I said in the beginning, I'm a commentator, not a player, right? But even from my perspective, even from what somebody would say is a casual perspective, she's not broken. The most you can honestly say about her without just trying to spread misinformation is you say she is really strong. She is a really powerful character.
It just depends on it's all about the adaptation and awareness of the
You
player
gotta
for
be
dealing with the
constructed
character.
here, man.
Oh jeez.
Take your L and hold it close to your chest.
I will gladly hold that L. I didn't think Doggy was gonna take it seriously. Yo, he's like, yo, hold up. First of all,
We
we're gonna break
said
this down. We're gonna break this down, bro. And then he did say that. He did say, yo, I could keep it at 1,000, right? Get this trash question out of here. Dang, Doggy, my bad.
I'm willing to entertain it because this ain't my podcast, but clearly he's not.
He's like, yo, this is business. All right. So we're gonna move on to business then. Let's move on to business then. Okay. All right. So that was just a little couple of questions there to get the flow going here. Now this is where a question that kind of gets a little controversial. And yo, feel free to be as honest as possible. So first off, this is gonna be for FGCJesus. So let's get the wildfire out of the way on this one. What do you think of the current Street Fighter V community scene here in Georgia?
I think it's in the worst shape it's ever been in, and I think that because the love of the game is gone. Look, I think Street Fighter V is at the end of its life, and because it's at the end of its life, there's going to not be any new blood unless something magical happens, I guess. There's no new content. There may be one content patch, but I mean, at this point, there's no real reason to play Street Fighter. It's an old game. There's new stuff coming out that people are more interested in doing that's made better, that has better netcode. I mean, at this point, most people are just in a waiting pattern for Street Fighter 6. Now that it has been surreptitiously leaked to be in existence. I think that may be why the company decided not to just go ahead and say there was going to be a Street Fighter 6, so that there wasn't this level of apathy and competition. But yeah, no, I think it's in a terrible place. I think there's no brick and mortar places that'll host the players, and I don't think the players themselves are willing to leave their houses to play the game.
Okay. SirRetro, same question. What do you think of the current Street Fighter 5 community scene here in Georgia?
Yeah, I might agree with it. I mean, you can even see from like I barely see even like Neon Terrence, like two of the best Street Fighter players in that area in the state and stuff, like really being as active anymore. And I know that we have our little exhibitions and have a few players here and there, but yeah, that's just inside our circle. Way outside our circle with everybody else, nah. Because like even go to the recent tournaments, Augusta Guard Break, um, even watching the online tournaments and being and so forth. You can see in like Teen Spooky and so forth. Like the numbers are going down, significantly. And of course, everyone expecting, and waiting, like I said, for a Street Fighter 6 to come out. Because I don't think, even if there's a new content coming out for Street Fighter 5, pretty much there said what's done is done. Like pretty much, like even before, I'd say almost shortly before the pandemic, I saw like the Street Fighter 5 interest was drowning. So
And I pretty much share the same sentiment as you two gentlemen. There overall, I feel that from my end, I feel like the scene is weak at the moment. Like the spirit of competition is just it's not there, and COVID really shifted things. Really changed the game. Some of our veteran Street Fighter 5 players have either stopped playing or just don't want to play this online, or just lost interest, or just a combination of all three. I mean, I'm not a fan of online myself, but I just I just try to play to support, try to play the every now and then to support the event. But it's just not the same anymore. I'm more used to trying to, get offline and, run sets in person and interact with people, things of that nature, and it's just not the same experience online versus offline. And for us, I feel like everybody right now is just either just playing it casually because it's there, because it's available. But as far as like trying to get better, compete and stuff like that, we may have maybe one or two players that do that, maybe still regularly enter events every now and then. But I'm just for everybody else, it's just not the same.
I mean,
Um,
COVID shut down the last CPT too. Like, what is there to look forward to?
right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just hmm. It's like, what's the point of pressing start? Yeah, that's what. I mean, I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to feel that way, but it's 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 like, okay, if an event decides to host or decides to run Street Fighter 5, I mean, I can enter, but I can just guarantee you that the numbers are just gonna be like extra low. And I don't know. It's just not the same. Um, Same question to you, Doggy. Here, what do you think of the current Street Fighter 5 community scene here in Georgia?
I mean, my opinion is not going to be different from anybody else's because, like you were even going on about, like Jesus was going on about, like Retro was going on about, like what is there actually to play for at this point? Um, what is there to play for? How many people are around that genuinely enjoy the game for what it is to just play it for sport? There's not really many. Like there are still some people who play it for whatever reason, like Retro said that he hasn't seen Neon and Terrence play too much. Neon turns the game on pretty frequently. Terrence has publicly said many times he doesn't turn the game on anymore. But taking Neon for an example, Knowledge has been turning the game on that I see visibly. I look at them play it, and they say that they're like, well, especially Knowledge has a little spark because there's been some trash talk to him recently. Has had a little spark for like the CPT online, but realistically, people like them two come across as trying to keep themselves, I don't want to say polished, but they don't want to get dull before whatever the next venture is. And that's the most you can really ask out of the game right now. Like, I feel like the reason why the the scene is so weak in the state, out of state, just as a whole, is you have to go very far to find somebody who likes the game, like purely for what it is. And it has to be, it's usually going to be a really specific situation. Like KB, for example. KB is a player. He's been recently streaming again with his new brand and everything. But for him to come back after being gone for so long and adventures and everything, it reminds me of the thing that he said in the beginning, and he said pretty consistently, where he liked Street Fighter V. Now, you also have to realize that if you ask him if he's played something before, he hasn't played anything before. So he's one of the few people to where all of his Street Fighter venture is 5. There aren't too many of those people that are still left. And if there's not too many of those people that are still left, like, how do you get people to even like entertain the idea of making themselves stronger when, just like you all said, what is there at the end of it all? There's nothing that people see right now, because the last event that could have put any fire under anybody's backside is gone.
Final round.
CPT, but are you asking about final round?
Nah, I'm yeah. That's what I'm asking. Like, you said the last event that could possibly light a fire under our players. I'm thinking locally. So I'm thinking final round because again, that was our premier major here. So now that that's gone, that's what I was thinking you were talking about.
I was talking about CPT because I know
Oh,
you
okay.
didn't ask this specifically, but
Hmm.
final round is kind of a different topic. And will it come back in any capacity?
Ah,
Let me throw you a curveball. Let me be one of the worst guests that you'll probably ever have and commandeer this. ShadowAce, I got a question for you.
talk to me. What we got?
When COVID hit, final round was going to be the last major before everything shut down, right? Final
Yep,
round folded,
me and Mr. Annual was supposed to commentate that before the pandemic started. So
right?
that, yeah, for that year it got canceled. Yep, go ahead.
Just like many events that year, final round folded. Unlike the other major events, the major community ran events, unlike CEO, unlike Combo Breaker, there has been complete radio silence from final round about any future prospects. Do you think final round is coming back?
No,
There's no way in hell that's coming back.
no, no. It was the reason why the reason why I say that is because prior to that, the year before, there were talks of it just being the last final round in general, like all together. As far as some of the staff leaving the final round event, the main core staff, so that support was dropping, and then there from the people, from what I was hearing, like the quality of the event itself was dropping. And in regards to that, the support, it just changed up. It kind of like was different because now the same players, they weren't showing up for it anymore. Now people used to be extra excited. Hey, final round this year, yo, you gonna get a room, or like, yo, you going, or stuff like that. Now it's like, I might go, I might not go. I don't know what happened to that spark or that energy from our locals, but it just kind of changed up a little bit. Now, as far as anything happening again, we said it before. Radio silence, like nothing, dead air, no type of updates, nothing like that coming out from anything in regards to that. So it led me to believe that it's finished. Um, and it was very unfortunate because I was looking forward to that year, the commentating with Mr. Annual coach on that. We were selected. We were part of the group. Everything was getting together. Then the pandemic hit. So then flash forward to here. Now we're here, but there just hasn't been anything in regards to that. So what do you feel the same way as far as that, Doggy?
Truth be told, I don't think you can find anybody who thinks otherwise at this point. Jesus already noted very hard. Retro, do you think otherwise?
So I'm on the same boat with everyone else. I say even before COVID, there pretty much was an idea that the final round of 2020, if it did came out, it pretty much would have been it, more than likely. And there were talks of people may try to do their own things or something like that, or find something else. And I know that even after COVID happened, there were people that were talking about trying to do something similar, reboot it, the Georgia regional of a sort. So I pretty much figured that a lot of people had that confirmation, and when they saw COVID happen, they pretty much like, okay, that's the nail in the coffin for sure. So no.
My bad. I still hijacked. This is my segment now.
No. Feel free. Go ahead, dude.
Like
Do what you got.
Wait, hey, look, we ain't stopping you.
I did sort of skip over you, Jesus. Not intentionally, but you did have your harsh reaction. Did you have anything you wanted to add to this?
Yeah, I wanted to say I actually talked with somebody who runs conventions, whose name I'm going to leave out of this anyways. But they told me that when the organizer themselves leaves or loses interest, they take along with them all of their contacts to the industry. So I don't think we'll ever see another event again, like Final Round, unless Shin Blanca himself decides to hand over all his Capcom contacts, all of his sponsorship contacts, and hand them over to somebody who's satisfactory to the people who were funding the event itself. And even then, who's going to want to come at this point? Since apparently Final Round was such a terrible event, which I always thought was bullshit. It's a perfectly fine, perfectly good event, and he did the best he could with where he could hold it. I mean, I never really quite understood that, but with his loss comes the loss of every possibility we have of holding something of that caliber.
Of that magnitude at that level, that much resources and time and money. At just I mean, at best we have is what now DreamHack, Momocon, but I don't think I
DreamHack.
think even Momocon, yeah, DreamHack and Momocon is kind of like the last bastions. But outside of that, like an Atlanta-owned Pacific event, that was kind of like the biggest thing. And once we lost that, it was kind of GG's at that point.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's pretty much we all had that universal feeling as far as that um going. But yeah, let me move on here to my next question. That could be a little bit spicy as well. Um, all right, so say if somebody was looking to get like come into the scene like fresh brand new player in the scene, they're going around, they're asking, hey, where are there any tournaments in Georgia? Where can I, I want to enter some tournaments. What would you tell me, like what advice do you have for the next generation of players to come in, like say you retire, or just you just stop playing in general and someone just tries to ask you, hey, where can I play tournaments here in Georgia? Like, where are the tournaments here in Georgia? What information are you going to tell them? FGCJesus, go.
Well, the first thing I'm going to tell them is that tournaments are not the end all be all of competition. I'm going to tell them that they need to establish a place for other players who are of like mind to come and just hang out and have fun. Tournaments are like the end game of fighting games. You want to have fun first before you start trying to make money or trying to have fun at these large scale events in the first place. But when push comes to shove, you sort of have to look around. We've got 404, we've got Augusta, and that's really all I can think of right now, besides online events.
Mm,
Yeah, that's
You
it.
got
okay.
you got a reboot too,
So what's a reboot?
Macon,
Yeah.
Kirk Group,
What's
Well,
Dillon,
that?
yeah.
Georgia. Wow.
What?
Okay.
Nami?
Does that exist? Is that a
Wait a
town?
minute.
Yeah, we're still. Oh,
Reboot,
sorry.
Macon, Georgia.
We're definitely still around in Macon.
I'm
It's,
surprised Reboot survived through COVID. I'll be perfectly honest.
yeah, like, well, the thing is, I can, well, obviously, since I'm running it, the thing is that, what at the time when, COVID happened, like I said, we had to adapt to the online era. And, yeah, I know we dealt with the worst of it, and we had a lot of discussions, but of course, we did online tournaments. Since then, we started doing offline last year in the summer, and apparently it's been interesting because we now are going towards older fighting games. So Super Turbo, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Third Strike, now they starting to have much more of a support because now we have a bunch of Marvel 2 players here. Um, and we recently, no, in September, we teamed up with a donation organization called Tuesday's Children for the 9/11. We did online in-person tournament for that. Raised $100 for that event. But of course, yeah, after the fall, we took a break from tournaments, but we ended up started doing exhibitions, and yeah, mostly some online, but then we also had in-person exhibitions, and we had players who don't normally play current fighting games, but play older fighting games and don't really get a chance to go to tournaments much. So we started scheduling and doing exhibitions um, on weekdays and weeknights, and that actually got a huge support. And like I said, ShadowAce actually can attest for that because he's been commentating recently many of those events. So that's actually how we've been kind of thriving, is where we're doing now just exhibitions and showcasing players' small talent. And of course now we had like recently had on Savannah, we did online exhibition in Grand Blue team exhibition. That was a big thing, but now they want to say, hey, let's get together in person and do in person like Guilty Gear exhibitions. So we pretty much adapted to like find other avenues to keep that interest and stuff going. So we might not do tournaments as often in person like we used to. Of course, we're going to have one in March with the Cherry Blossom tournament run by SmackDown Nerds, which is in March. But as far as like beside that, we've been active in the sense of running small in person events here and there. And of course, we may not have been as widely public open advertising as much, but we need to work on that. But yeah, we have been thriving still, and we pretty much are looking and trying to run more tournaments, but it won't be as often like on a monthly basis. But we're still going to be more consistently active, especially this year. So
Yeah, so there are offline tournaments, but depending on what area you live in, you would have to do some traveling just to get to them. Yeah, you might have to do some driving just to get to them. But there are events, but they're not as many, of course, as there used to be. But there are some events for the players out there if they're just trying to get up on where the tournament's at in the scene. Um, One of the things I also want to touch on, as far I remember I think what did I ask about? I think I asked Jesus this question earlier about how FGC Fight Club was done. in regards to the entrance and support for the event. Communication, the business from coming from the business aspect of it, like as far as communication goes, like companies, I always had the idea. I remember way back in the day, I may have pitched an idea for the TOs or like the 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 heads of these game shops to like try to meet up to have a conference, um like way back when, like, hey, how about everybody get together, meet up, exchange some ideas and stuff on how to keep the game thriving. And I remember only two people were interested in in the idea. I think the others just either didn't respond or just nothing. Nothing. There was no activity coming out from that. And I kind of I do remember that. I was like, well, how come this, like, because I was confused, because like, why are because back in the day when it was a little bit more active pre-COVID, um why were two businesses holding tournaments on the same day? Just, and that divides entrance and stuff like that. Like, why? Like, yo, take this weekend, and then next week I'll take this weekend. And that's why I was kind of was trying to wondering, like, where's the communication between the companies or between the businesses? So how does something like that can happen, or is that asking too much?
Well, there's only a certain number of days in a week, Ace. And also, if two businesses start to hate each other, well, then you don't care if you run a game on their day.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
That
they're like, let's
hmm.
be honest. You can't always schedule around somebody else. You have to pick one. This was a problem with having more than one major like every month. Like we ran into this problem where we were running like 3 to 4 tournaments every week and I would end up having to come out there this much and we would have nobody come in because everybody would be going to like a physical location or there'd be some online tournament. There's always something else going on. You just have to run your stuff anyways. I mean, what can you do?
Hmm. Is it should not so should not the companies like talk to each other, or is just like, yo, just run your thing this day, I'm gonna run my thing this day, and it is what it is?
What
That's
happens
should
when you
that
find somebody else out of the loop?
I mean,
It's
yeah,
out of the
there's
loop
always going to be
or doesn't
somebody out of
know?
the loop. Like, here's the thing. All of these are independent agents. We are all working on our very own thing. There may be a level of communication between tournament runners, but if there keeps popping up more and more people, then at some point you just end up competing with everybody. And that's just the way of things. It's
Mm.
just the reality of the situation. Like, if somebody's holding a tournament on Friday evening, the prime time to hold a tournament, well, guess what? You can run a tournament on Thursday, but you're not gonna get the same level of entrance. You're not gonna get the same people. And then everybody's gonna ask you to turn around and schedule it on a different day. They're gonna ask you to blah, 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 blah. And you're just like, no, I can't keep changing the schedule for every little person who needs to have it on a certain time. We run it when we run it, and you will respect our time as the tournament, or you just won't sign in. And we have to deal with that as a tournament, and you have to deal with that as a competitor.
And I think that was another thing that was kind of hitting too back in the day, like the division between the players and supporting the events. Well, why go to this tournament where I can go to this? I can go to this tournament. This tournament is much closer to me. Why did they? And then, you hear, why are they running the tournament on the same day as this? And like then you wonder
Ooh
in the
boy.
background, you wonder on the back end, like, yo, what happened? Like, how did they not know that these events are being ran? And to Doggy's point, Doggy did say that, well, what if they're out of the loop? What if they don't know about this other tournament? It's it. Well, this is the part where you would have to reach out, right? Like, someone would have to be willing to reach out to this business. Hey, I saw you ran this event this day. Is it possible we can coordinate to make sure our tournaments don't overlap each other? But again, to
I
FGC
mean,
Jesus' point, this is,
early
yo,
on,
we're running it, we're
I'm so
doing it
sorry.
this
Go
way.
ahead.
No, 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 you're right.
I said early on, in FGC Fight Club, we did that. And at a certain point, it just becomes untenable because people just do whatever. It sounds simple, but you're asking for a lot, especially because our FGC Fight Club team was basically Dosa, the director, myself, a volunteer, and 3 people who worked at a studio who were not FGC people. I was like the only FGC person working for them.
Mhm.
And
see, there,
so if I don't know about it, then they're not going to know about it. And
Mm.
even if they did, well, we have to reach out to these people. We reach out to them. They'd be like, well, we're not going to change our day. That's our day. Why don't you change it to a different day? It's like, it sounds simple to say, oh, everybody should just get along. That's not how it works. It's just not.
Reality stone.
there's another angle to this that might be causing a little bit of disconnect with you, Ace. And this is something that's wouldn't be considered to a lot of people. Like you're asking about like why can't everybody get together and cooperate with each other, but you're also thinking about that in terms of like the grassroots side. So like the idea that data, for example, is going to find a venue and they're going to find a convenient date that they can run it that'll not line up or that will not conflict with anybody else. That Gwinnett Brawl, if they had the ability to do so, because if you remember, a lot of their tournaments had to be run around the constraints of when the wasteland would allow them in there because they were a Magic, a major Magic shop,
They were a
right?
card shop.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
were a card shop, but they held Magic regionals, if I remember correctly. So it's not
Mhm.
like assuming that Gwinnett Brawl could, you're assuming that they would hold it on any date, which would be nice in theory. But what I'm getting to, and what Jesus is getting to, is when you're getting the businesses involved, even if they know, uh, if the business isn't like strictly for these events, which none of these, well, FTC Fight Club was, but like Axis was not strictly for fighting games. It was a LAN center. It was a tech center. Wasteland Games was a card shop that allowed us to be around. Um, 404. I mean, sure they are a gaming center that is centric to fighting games, but it is still a business at the end of the day. There are some times where this is the only weekend they can, or the only day they can run this event. So you're telling this business to not run this event. That's not how that's going to fly.
Then also to add to that point, when when a business announces a date that they're going to do an event, right? And another company comes along and announces the event on that same weekend, that would cause a discourse between the two businesses, right? Or do you look at it as, okay, it's just business, it's just coincidentally your event happens to align on the same day as mine, as ours, so we're just gonna run it regardless and hope for the best for as far as interest and goes like that. Do you think there's something that takes account as far as like a company knew that they were going to schedule on that particular day, or is that not known? I mean, there's no way to know that.
Almost never. Weird. Look, people figure out what's the best day for the place that's running it. And guess what? If something else happens on that day, they usually don't know about it. Like, I'm like, when we were doing FGC Fight Club, our best days were the weekends because that's when people had time off. So we're just going to run it on the weekends, right? That's when I had the time to come into the studio. That's when everybody was free to come in and actually run the thing. And it's when people were free to play it. And during the weekends, everybody runs their goddamn tournaments. So, of course, you had to compete
Hmm.
with other people. It's
Okay.
it's just the way it happens.
Okay, so it shouldn't be looked at as a one company trying to step on the toes of another company because they may have known about an event being ran on that day and they still decided to run it. So it should be looked like, hey, it should be looked at as, well, this is when the businesses is most available. This is when it's most convenient for us to do this. So we're just going to run our event. If your event is on the same day, then unfortunately, so be it. You still have
Yeah.
to run the event.
Hey,
That's
I
Sir,
mean,
okay.
the players have to think about it in that the actual competition itself, the organization of it is a bigger thing than just the players involved. Running an event is not easy. It is a time-consuming, difficult affair, and it's expensive too, especially when people generally do it when they know they're going to lose money.
Yep.
Hmm. And this is why you've had some. I mean, this is why we've saw several businesses kind of come and go over
Mm.
the years because of that particular aspect, where the company or the person may have been spending more money than it is just to rent out the venue or just to keep things afloat financially. They decided, well, hey, there's no, I mean, I can't make a profit off of this, or I'm not able to make a profit off of this. I'll have to pull out. And at that time, certain companies through a partnership, they're able to maintain a healthy relationship and keep people coming in over the years. And we've seen that. We've seen people companies come and go. And the ones that have been here for so long, it's a question mark on my head how the business is still functioning and operating, especially during COVID. So the fact that they're able to maintain and keep their doors open, meaning something's being done right. And that's kind of what I kind of want to think about, like when the next person comes in. Like, what if there's another person, let's say a few months from now? Hey, let me get into the FGC. How do I get into the FGC? Who do I contact here in Georgia? Who do I contact to get this started, get the ball rolling? Who do I speak to? Hey, I got this venue that I just opened up not too long ago. Let's get that started. How do you approach that particular person to make sure that their assets are secured for like future events? Like they like few months down the road, they like, okay, now I don't want to do this no more. Like what is your approach to them as far as keeping it healthy?
Well, I would say that the only healthy business right now is probably 404 Esports. Um, every other esports arena that I've talked to at this point is incredibly wary of hosting any FGC events. I'm sure that could change, but I mean, Turner Broadcasting tried their hand at it. Um, I even talked to Georgia Public Broadcasting about hosting a high school fighting game league, and they have been reticent to say the least. Um, I hate to say it, but like you're better off just sort of opening up a general gaming cafe and allowing the FGC to sort of like, and I hate to use this word, infect it with their thuggery.
In other words, you want to not make it your sole purpose just to be catering to one specific need. You want to make sure
Oh
that
yeah,
it's like universal, like that, like a family friendly type thing, but have the FGC element in it too as well.
going all in on the FGC is a losing bet. Having something that the general populace can be around the FGC for allows for the FGC to grow naturally by attracting the attention of people who may see it as an entertaining prospect.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Um. Actually, I could say I could attest to that. I say because Reboot definitely is one for example because mainly even without us, the business will will prosper because there's people who don't give a shit about the FGC, don't know that even exists, is going to go there for whatever else reason. 'Cause to be honest, we don't bring money or much money or anything for the business aspect, which I wanted to do because many of our players don't buy drinks, for example, which is how Reboot really actually makes money. But as far as having tournaments there, for example, like you're saying, people who don't care about fighting games but see these small group of people like supporting and saying a lot of stuff about it, They're like, huh. So I see you guys like the fighting game tournaments, whatever. I mean, I don't give a shit, but I'll see what's going on. That really would help. Obviously, did help. Reboot thrive for a while, but of course, and then in addition to like keeping it going, you know, there's a lot of, as far as running someone and actually have people that would we actually have people that will come into the area and the scene, hear about a fighting game crew, and they would want to say, oh, I want to have a. I'm in the basement of this comic book store, but I want to have an arena just like DreamHack. And these fighting game people, y'all guys passionate. I want y'all this and this and this, and I want to focus on just y'all. My challenge was to them was like, okay, well, what do you have interest in running fighting games? Do you have interest in fighting games? Do you what games you're looking at doing? How many people well, do you know how many people are here? Do you know how many people will come down? Do you know anyone outside of here that will have to come down? Do you know how you're going to advertise? Do you know all the stuff? Usually, I would challenge them to a lot of a question of if you want to get involved and invest into the FGC, what no the thing is, what is your purpose? What do you want to get out of it? If you just want to try to make money out of it, if you want to try to like profit out of it and so forth, and that's all you want to do, and you want to try to magically turn a basement full of players into a esports arena, $50 million esports arena full of players, and you trying to just go for that. Oh yeah, that actually happened a few times, and seeing that as soon as they run the tournament, 4 people show up for Street Fighter Five. Well, where are the people go? What's going on? You said there's 20 people. Well, they had to work. The transportation is not easy. Like you have to consider other factors outside of it. Was like social economic status, transportation status, the interest of the people status. Life happens. That type of stuff. It's so volatile. So a lot of people don't understand that, and they just zone in and arrow. The thing is, you have to adapt with it. Where hey, some people want to leave the community in general, and the interest, may not be there anymore. The game may not be as what people want to. The new patch came out. Everyone says it sucks. Fuck it. I'm done with this game. Yeah. Well, why do I want to play Mortal Kombat 11 anymore? Why? Well, people don't like the game. No. Well, what game should I do this, Raj? No, let me try to focus on tech and focus on like. Well, you have to consider your surroundings. You have to consider, people who you're dealing with. You have to think outside of what you're focusing on, because you're looking towards too much inward and not looking outward. And that's what I want to tell people to be careful about that. If they're not focusing outside of what's going on, where other factors, even social political standards stuff happening, could affect people would have to move laws that certain people can come here or do this. Circumstances like the COVID, all that type of stuff. If you don't consider those outside factors, you're not going to find ways for people to get in.
I dang, that was a lot of information, man. But you know what? I agree 100%. Um, Everything sounded really really well. Um, as far as as far as that concerned, I was looking. I was like, dang, we actually went over on our time. I originally had planned for just 2 hours, but looks like we was going over that. But I appreciate that, man. I think this was actually pretty successful, man. I think a lot of things got out in the open that needed to be gotten out, and things are said that were said. It could have been, we could have got a little bit more spicier, but you know what? I like that we were able to maintain a good composure, a good healthy discussion. Unfortunately, the person that one of the people that we were going to do this with, they weren't able to be here, but they wanted to try to get in on the next one. And if Sir Retro is interested, we could try to hold a part two to this to try to get the people that wanted to do it but just weren't able to, get them on the
Absolutely.
next rotation. Yo, yeah, I'm down. I'm definitely down. So FGC Jesus, Doggy, Sir Retro, I want to thank you guys so much for taking your time out of your day and doing this. And I want to give you guys, your closing statements. Your closing statements. If you do have anything you would like to express or anything you'd like to say, in regards to just the Street Fighter Five community here in Georgia in general, Dogysamich, we can start out with you.
Well, if mine's gonna be really short. First, thank you for having myself and FGC Jesus on this podcast, allowing us to give you our thoughts, so on and so forth. You can tell I'm not really good at all of this. What do I have for the Georgia community, the Street Fighter community? Stay strong, see what happens in the future. Like, from my perspective, I don't think there's really a lot to say at this point because anybody who's still around is waiting to see what's going to happen next. Like, there are some people that were avidly turning the game on just to keep themselves in shape, if you will. A lot of people have, whether through actions or through words, have shown that they're not really interested in what's happening right now. But for anybody who's like looking to the future, just see what happens.
Okay. All right. Wise words from Dogysamich. And now, where can the good people, the viewers who are currently watching this broadcast and who will be listening to the archive, where can they find you for more of your insight outside of just this?
Anywhere that has my name on it. You see Dogysamich, that's me. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, even though I don't stream, Instagram, you pick it. It's I should be there. If I'm there and you find out it's not me, let me know. That means somebody trying to steal my name.
just type your name in Google search, and it's gonna bring me up everything I need to know about some Dogysamich.
Pretty
It's gonna say
much.
commentator of the year. All right, so if it say
No.
commentator of the year, that's official link, yo.
Oh my gosh.
All right, FGC Jesus, any closing remarks?
Yeah, you can find me on youtube.com/FGC_Jesus and follow me on Twitch at twitch.com/FGC_Jesus. And as far as the fighting game community goes, I need everybody to realize that at the end of the day, we're talking about a video game. It's a video game. Have fun with it. If you're not having fun with it, then there's no reason to make it anything more than what it already is. But if you want it to be more than that, you have to understand that that comes with making it more than a video game. It becomes a business. And that may sound boring, but even some entertaining things come from organizing something into something that it never was intended to be. So, as for the future of the Georgia FGC, we'll have to see. We're in a holding period until something comes out that can stoke the fires of a younger generation to take up the mantle of our communities and bring it into a new existence.
All right, Sir Retro. Any closing remarks?
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dogysamich, and thank you, FGC Jesus, for definitely coming out, lending your definitely awesome voices and your knowledge and wisdom to the podcast. Definitely, still even learning to this day, as I'm still, pretty much being the new of the group of the people. Definitely, and for the Georgia FGC, I'll definitely say, this is an era that we're definitely dealing now. We have to learn to that. We have to evolve, adapt to, or else, more or less will die. And of course, the fact don't, if you're really passionate and you really want interest in involvement, become part of FCC, ultimately in the end, you just want to have fun with it. And like I said, like if just FGC Jesus said, that if you want to make it more than that, then you have to really look at the fact of it'll become, if you want to make it like a business, you have to get involved with the business. If you want to make it with a lifestyle, you have to you have to get involved with lifestyle. So, but as far as the future, I have some weird, crazy optimism that something would be good for the scene. So definitely, but the thing is that we have to learn to expand our horizons and to break out of that bubble, wherever it is, to see what it could become. Because I believe the FGC can become bigger than what many people can imagine. That's all.
Good. Nice. All right. So, what's first off, I want to once again thank you guys. I want to thank Sir Retro for hosting this on his channel, giving us a platform to lend our voices for tonight's broadcast. Yeah, we went over the original time. I originally had planned it for 2 hour good 2 hour podcast would be good, but we're over. We're at 2:30 right now, and I was like, oh, okay, wow, look at the time. But that just shows that the conversation is either getting good or maybe droning on a bit in certain areas. But regardless, I want to thank you guys so much for taking your time out of your Sunday evenings to join me on this Dogysamich at FGCJesus. This was very insightful. A lot of information was given out. And I'm sure the viewers at home appreciate it because they've been with us since the beginning of the podcast, and I appreciate that support. So I definitely want to see about doing this again, with the people who wanted to do it but they weren't able to do it today. Want to try to get that VIP and KB on here and maybe reach out to some others in regards to that. So this is just a general feedback form, just on the thoughts. I know it's been a long time, man. It's been a long time. I know we've been all going through the quarantine period, the pandemic period. Certain factors lined up that could have just prevented us from doing anything social wise in regards to that. So we've been trying to maintain that particular balance, and this was just a good avenue to express how we felt in regards to that. On top of the fighting game community in general. I'm sure the viewers at home got some good information about the players and the speakers. Well, the speakers tonight's broadcast too as well. Some very interesting and funny stories too. So man, this was a success. This was a success, and I definitely want to do this again. My closing thoughts on this is just to try to, I mean, see where the future takes us at this point. Just try to remain, keep your head high, keep the head high above waters, because at times I felt like just giving up, honestly, just walking away completely. Like, I'm done with it. I'm gonna delete the game. I'm just gonna sell my system. I'm just retiring. Don't ask me to commentate no events anymore. I was on that verge. I was on that breaking point of just doing just that, but I just didn't give up. I'm just not gonna give up like that. I'm not giving up like that. I'm not gonna give up on our scene. I know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I do know that, unfortunately, some of our players are not be as active as they used to be, or they just not too fond of the conditions of being forced to play online, which is understandable. So that kind of like drives away their interest, or they just don't play the game anymore, which is fine and that's understandable. But there's something in me that just tells me to just keep doing it, just keep pushing forward. Don't give up yet, Ace. Don't walk away just yet. See where the future takes us. Tomorrow tomorrow could be something completely new. You could get a message that says, "Oh, such and such is now happening. Come offline," or something like that. But I'm just gonna keep remaining hope, man. Just gonna keep moving forward and see where it takes me. So once again, I want to thank Sir Retro for hosting this podcast. I think it will be archived, I believe, and I think Retro may do some edits. And is it going to go on the Reboot Gaming channel, or which platform is this going on?
Um, yeah, that's a good question. I probably might put it the yeah, I'll put it on a reboot on gaming channel, but definitely
Okay.
I do have it backup recorded just in case. So definitely may not worry much about the editing part. But like I said, thank you, ShadowAce, for definitely introducing this brilliant idea. And I definitely will look forward to more of this happen, as long as that we're able to do so. Pinkbot says it's going to his MySpace.
Paybot, what in the world? What's Paybot
He's in the
doing?
chat.
This guy. Shouts to Paybot, yeah. But yeah, man, I definitely want to get more people on here, man. So if you guys are interested, I definitely want to do this again with another group of people just to get their feedbacks on things and allow them to express themselves. I think this was a very very healthy conversation, and I'm impressed, man. I'm impressed this went so well. It just was a collaborative effort that made this happen. So I do appreciate that. But with that being said, I think that's going to wrap up the podcast, the broadcast for the night. Once again, thank you guys so much, Dogysamich, FGCJesus, SirRetro. Again, this has been ShadowAce, your moderator, and we definitely want to do this again. So stay tuned, guys. We'll coordinate and try to figure out what the next step is as far as the next group of people we're gonna have, and we'll get a date up for you guys. That's why I didn't put a date on the flyer. I didn't put a date and I didn't put the name of the people on the flyer because I wasn't trying to pay again to get another flyer done when I could just have this and just like I guess edit and put people's names on it. So with that being said, I'm out the door. Dogysamich, FGCJesus, SirRetro, thank you guys so much for your time. Thank you everybody for viewing.
Been a
And stay
pleasure.
tuned for details on social media for the next one. And you guys have a good evening.
Yep, deuces.